What are some good areas for Washington, D.C. visitors to stay? And do I know any good hotels? I'm going to answer both questions in this video. Hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. As a tour guide and the host of this YouTube channel, I get asked for hotel recommendations all the time. And if you're a longtime subscriber, you'll know I posted a video on this exact topic way back in 2018. But obviously, things are a little different now than they were in the before times. So I thought it was about time to revisit this topic. And I'm curious, have you stayed in Washington, D.C. lately? Which hotel did you pick? And how did you like it? Leave a comment under the video and let everyone know. And if you want all of my recommendations in one place, that's all organized over at triphacksdc.com/hotels. There are 11 areas of the city where I recommend staying, and individual hotel recommendations in each area. I still think all 11 are good for visitors, and I would be happy to put my own family in any of the hotels that I recommend. What I have been thinking about a lot lately is the ranking of these areas. Do I still think the same areas are the best? Or have any moved up the list? There are some I used to place lower on the list that I think now rank higher. So let's jump in so I can explain. In the before times, I always said that the best area for tourism and general sightseeing was downtown, specifically the area around the White House. And this is still a very convenient area. It's walkable to the National Mall and the museums, and close to Metro for transportation. But I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Downtown is hurting because of COVID. You have to remember that in the before times, there were hundreds of thousands of people who commuted into the city every day for work, and many of them worked downtown. So when COVID hit, it was a huge blow to this area. Not to mention that in 2020, a completely lost year for travel and tourism, some downtown hotels were down something like 90% at the worst of it. That said, I still think this is a generally good area for visitors because of its proximity to the sites and to transportation. The vibe downtown in 2022, I think, can probably best be described as quiet. It's not desolate or anything like that. This is roughly what you can expect to find midday downtown these days. But you'll also see plenty of signs like this from commercial landlords trying to refill the spots from businesses that closed during COVID. I feel similarly about the area around the convention center. Conferences and conventions are slowly coming back, but it's going to be a while before they're back to their previous glory. So in 2022, I would say both downtown and the area around the convention center are good places to stay because of their central location. But they are not my top picks this year. By the way, if you're digging this topic, I released a brand new podcast episode today, May 1st, in which I go into much greater depth about my 11 recommended areas. What are the pros of each area? What are the cons of each area? And in that episode, I tell you about which areas I don't recommend and why. The don'ts are bonus podcast-only content. So check out the video description for the link so you can listen if you're interested. Now, the truth is some areas of the city just fared better during COVID. In general, areas with a lot of residents fared the best, and areas with a lot of office buildings but not a lot of residents fared the worst. Two areas I think fared particularly well are the Wharf and Capitol Riverfront, which I'm going to call the Navy Yard for the rest of this video. Unlike downtown, these are two areas that have a lot of people who live there. The Wharf was actually the first place that I went in 2021 and really got vibes that things were back. These are also both areas that have a decent number of hotels and are both adding new hotels in 2022. So I think that speaks to their momentum. If I were to put myself in the shoes of a Washington, D.C. visitor in 2022, I'd probably pick a hotel at the Wharf. It's close to a lot of tourist sites. It's a 20-minute walk to the Jefferson Memorial, a 15-minute walk to the closest Smithsonian museums, and there's a free Wharf shuttle if you'd rather catch a ride rather than walk. Plus, there's always a bunch of fun stuff and special events happening at the Wharf. Navy Yard is going to be very active if you're here for a Washington Nationals or DC United home game. So if you're planning on seeing either of those teams while you're here, this area might be be best for you. But even if you're not a sports fan, this area now has a huge concentration of restaurants. The Yards Park is a ton of fun for kids and families. So again, putting myself in the shoes of a visitor, I think this area could be fun in 2022. Now, what about Virginia? I know some people prefer to stay in the suburbs instead of the city, either because they prefer the suburban vibe or because the hotels offer lower rates. Bristol City is typically the Goldilocks Virginia location because there are a bunch of hotels connected to the Crystal City metro station by underground tunnels. And once you're at the Crystal City metro station, you're only 3 stops from downtown. That said, as much as this pains me to say, Metro is still not back to 100% capacity. So I'm less keen to recommend an area where you always have to be riding in and out using Metro. And this is extremely important. In the fall of 2022, the Yellow Line Bridge will close for a major rehabilitation. During that time, it will still be possible to get downtown using the Blue Line, but it will be a much less convenient and longer ride. But I'm curious to know what you're thinking. If you're coming to DC this year, have you already picked a hotel? Which did you choose? Or if you haven't picked yet, what are you leaning towards? Leave a comment and let's chat about it. And don't forget about the much more in-depth podcast episode on this topic, which you can listen to in your favorite podcast app or find a link in the description. And once you're here, if you're interested in signing up for a TripHacks DC guided tour, you can click or tap on the Capitol Dome on the left side of my head. They'll send you right over to triphacksdc.com where you can see all of the tours that we offer. Enjoy your trip.